The chickadee on the branch above your head has been watching you for 3 minutes. You haven't noticed, but it noticed you the moment you stepped outside. And somewhere inside that tiny brain, smaller than your thumb, a decision is being made, a calculation, a risk assessment that will determine whether you become part of its survival network or remain forever categorized as a threat. This is not instinct. This is something much stranger. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, subscribe before you leave, because what you're about to learn will completely change the way you see the birds visiting your yard. Most people believe birds are simple, that they react, that they respond to movement and sound in proximity without much thought behind it. But the truth is far more unsettling, because the birds in your backyard are not reacting to you. They are studying you. They are mapping your patterns. They are building a psychological profile of who you are, how you move, what you do, and whether you can be trusted. And the moment a bird decides you are safe is not random. It is the result of a hidden evaluation system happening invisibly, every single day, right above your head. Let me take you back to a morning you've probably experienced. You walk outside with your coffee. The feeder hangs quietly beneath the oak tree. The yard is still. No wings, no movement, not a single bird in sight. You stand there for a moment, listening. Then you step back inside. And within seconds, sometimes before the door even closes, the chickadees return. The titmouse lands on the feeder. A cardinal drops from the upper branches. The mourning doves settle back onto the ground beneath the tray. It feels like coincidence, but it is not. What just happened was a behavioral pattern called proximity tolerance mapping, and it reveals something most people never realize about the birds they think they know. Every bird that visits your yard has an invisible radius around you, a zone, a distance they will not cross until a specific set of conditions has been met. For some birds, that radius is 50 feet. For others, it's 5. And the size of that zone is not fixed. It changes. It shrinks or expands based on what you do, how often you appear, and how predictable your behavior becomes. The birds are not avoiding you randomly. They are testing the boundaries of your threat level in real time. Inside the brain of a chickadee, there is a region called the hippocampus. In humans, this region handles memory and spatial navigation. In birds, it does the same thing. But in species like chickadees, nuthatches, and jays, the hippocampus is disproportionately large. Because these birds are not just remembering where food is, they are remembering you. Researchers at the University of Washington conducted an experiment. They had volunteers wear specific masks while trapping wild crows for research. The crows were never harmed, only tagged and released. But from that day forward, those crows recognized the masks. They would dive bomb anyone wearing them. They would scold. They would follow. And here's the part that changes everything. The crows who were never trapped, who only saw the trapping happen, also learned to hate the masks. They taught each other. They passed the information down. 5 years later, crows who had never been trapped still recognized and harassed people wearing those masks. The birds had built a collective memory, a social map of danger. And this same system exists in your backyard right now. The robin at your feeder doesn't just see a human. It sees you. It knows your face, your gait, your routine. It knows the difference between you and your neighbor, between you and the mail carrier, between you and the stranger walking past your yard. And it is making decisions based on that knowledge every single time you step outside. But memory alone is not enough, because the moment a bird decides you are safe is not just about recognition, it is about prediction. Let me explain. Imagine you fill your feeder every morning at 7. You step outside. You walk to the feeder. You pour the seed. You step back inside. Every day. Same time. Same movement pattern. Same outcome. The birds begin to notice. At first they scatter when you open the door. But over time something shifts. They stop leaving. They stay on the branches. They watch. Eventually they stay on the feeder itself while you approach. And one morning, a chickadee lands on the feeder while your hand is still touching it. That is not bravery. That is not luck. That is the result of something called behavioral synchronization. The bird has learned that your presence does not predict danger. It predicts food. It predicts safety. It predicts a reliable, non-threatening outcome. And once that association is formed, the bird's brain begins to release dopamine in your presence. Not fear. Reward. You have become part of its survival map. And this is happening in backyards all across America. quietly, without anyone realizing the depth of what is actually taking place. Now here's where it gets strange. Because the birds are not just watching what you do, they are watching how you do it. Your body language, your eye contact, your speed. Researchers studying gulls found that the birds were far less likely to approach food if a human was looking directly at them, even if the human was standing still. Even if the human made no sound, the birds could detect the direction of the gaze, and they interpreted direct eye contact as predatory focus. The same behavior has been observed in robins, crows, magpies, and jays. When you look directly at a bird, its brain registers a spike in threat assessment. But when you look away, when you move slowly, predictably, without focused attention, the bird's amygdala, the part of the brain that processes fear, begins to quiet. This is why experienced birders know to approach feeders at an angle, to move in soft arcs rather than straight lines, to avoid direct eye contact, to let the birds observe them without feeling observed. Because the birds are not just deciding whether you are dangerous, they are deciding whether you are aware of them. And if you seem unaware, unthreatening, distracted, then the invisible radius around you begins to shrink. The bird moves closer, not because it trusts you, but because it has calculated that you are not currently hunting. But what most people don't realize is this. The decision a bird makes about you is not permanent. It can be undone, reversed, erased in an instant. Let me give you an example. You've been filling your feeder for months. The chickadees land near you. The cardinals sing from the branches while you stand below. The juncos hop along the ground at your feet. And then one day, you make a sudden movement. You sneeze. You drop something. You reach out too quickly. And every bird scatters. The yard goes silent. The feeder sits abandoned. And for the next several days, the birds return to their original wariness. The radius expands again. The trust resets. What happened inside their brains in that moment was a phenomenon called threat recalibration. The bird's amygdala fired. Adrenaline flooded its system. And the memory of your safe, predictable presence was temporarily overwritten by a new memory. This human is unpredictable. In the wild, unpredictability equals danger. And once that association is triggered, it takes time to rebuild. The bird must observe you again, test you again, learn again that you are not a threat. And this process does not happen in a single visit. It happens slowly, across dozens of interactions, each one adding a small data point to the bird's internal map of who you are. Now let's go deeper, because there is a moment, rare but unmistakable, when a bird does not just tolerate your presence, it seeks it. You've probably seen it. A robin that lands near you every time you go outside. A crow that follows you down the street. A chickadee that watches you through the window. This is not coincidence. This is something researchers call targeted association. The bird has not only decided you are safe, it has decided you are useful. And this is where the psychology of birds becomes almost eerie, because birds are capable of understanding cause and effect in ways that rival primates. Crows in Japan have been observed dropping nuts onto crosswalks, waiting for cars to crack them, then retrieving the kernels when the light turns red. They learned the system. They learned the timing. They used humans as tools without the humans ever realizing. And in your backyard, the same thing is happening on a smaller, quieter scale. The robin has learned that when you dig in the garden, worms surface, so it follows you. The crow has learned that when you take out the trash, food becomes accessible, so it waits on the fence. The chickadee has learned that when you step outside, the feeder is filled, so it appears. These birds are not just passively existing in your space. They are actively integrating you into their survival strategies. You have become a predictable environmental feature, a resource, a non-threatening presence that improves their odds. And once that bond is formed, the bird begins to behave in ways that seem almost intentional. It vocalizes when you appear. It lingers when you leave. It returns, day after day, to the same branch, the same feeder, the same window, not because it loves you, but because it has learned that you are part of the pattern that keeps it alive. Number 7. But here is the part that changes everything. The moment a bird decides you are safe is not just a behavioral shift. It is a neurological one. Studies using functional imaging on bird brains have shown that when a bird is near a trusted human, activity in the amygdala decreases. Meanwhile, activity in the reward centers, the same areas associated with food, mating, and social bonding, increases. The bird's brain is literally rewiring its response to you. You are no longer categorized as predator. You are categorized as neutral, or in rare cases, positive. And this shift does not just affect one bird. It spreads. Young birds learn from their parents. Fledgling chickadees watch how the adults respond to you. If the adult lands near you without fear, the fledgling learns that you are safe. If the adult flees, the fledgling learns that you are a threat. This is called social learning, and it is one of the most powerful tools birds use to survive. Because a bird that has to learn every danger from scratch will not live long, but a bird that can inherit knowledge, that can learn from the behavior of others, has a massive evolutionary advantage. And you are part of that education system, right now, without knowing it. Every time you step outside, you are teaching the birds in your yard how to respond to humans, and they are passing that information to the next generation. Let me tell you about an experiment that haunts me. A researcher in England began feeding a group of wild robins in his garden. Every morning, same time, same spot, same whistle. Over the course of several months, the robins began approaching him, landing near him. Eventually, one landed on his hand, then another. Within a year, the robins would fly to him the moment he stepped outside. They recognized his face, his voice, his presence. But then the researcher stopped coming. He moved away, and for weeks the robins continued to return to the spot where he used to stand. They would land on the fence. They would call. They would wait, and then slowly they stopped. The behavior faded. The memory remained, but without reinforcement it became irrelevant. The birds moved on. But here's what stayed with me. Years later, the researcher returned. He stood in the same spot. He gave the same whistle. And within minutes, one of the robins appeared. It landed near him. It watched. It remembered. Not perfectly. Not instantly. But the neural pathway was still there, buried, waiting. And with just a few interactions, the bond reformed. The bird decided once again that he was safe. That is not instinct. That is memory. That is recognition. That is a level of cognitive complexity we are only beginning to understand. So what does this mean for you? It means that the birds in your yard are not decorations. They are not background noise. They are aware. They are watching. They are learning. And whether you realize it or not, you are in a relationship with them. A quiet, invisible, ongoing exchange of information. Every time you fill the feeder, you send a message. Every time you move slowly, you send a message. Every time you step outside at the same time, in the same way, you send a message. And the birds are listening. They are deciding. They are filing you into one of two categories, threat or safe. And once that decision is made, it shapes everything. How close they come, how long they stay, whether they flee or watch, whether they sing or go silent. You are not separate from the ecosystem of your backyard. You are part of it. And the birds know that better than you do. Here is the final truth. The moment a bird decides you are safe is not a single moment. It is an accumulation. A slow build of micro interactions, observations, patterns, and predictions. It is your routine, your stillness, your lack of sudden movement, your predictability. It is the absence of harm over time. And once that threshold is crossed, something beautiful happens. The invisible wall between you and the bird dissolves. Not completely, but enough. Enough that the bird no longer sees you as danger. Enough that it begins to see you as part of the landscape, as a feature of its world that can be trusted. And in that moment, you are given a glimpse into something most people never experience. The quiet intelligence of a creature that weighs less than an ounce. The hidden emotional life of a brain the size of a walnut. The realization that you are being seen, evaluated, and remembered by something wild. And that is not a small thing. That is the kind of connection that changes how you see the world. Because once you realize the birds are watching you, you start watching them differently. You move slower, you listen harder, you notice the small behaviors you used to ignore. The tilt of a head, the pause before landing, the soft call from the trees. And you realize that the hidden world was never hidden. It was just waiting for you to pay attention.